The late evening light bled through Derek's apartment blinds, casting faint golden stripes across the cluttered desk, where a half-finished cup of coffee sat cold beside a scattered pile of invoices and workshop tools. His phone buzzed once, a familiar name flashing across the screen. Natalie. For over 2.5 years, Derek had built his life around her orbit, not because she demanded it, at least not directly, but because she made needing him seem like love. Every call she made had a soft undertone of reliance, the way her voice softened when she said, "You're the only one who knows how to fix this," or how she'd half-laugh when her car stalled, saying, "Guess I need my mechanic/boyfriend again." To Derek, it wasn't servitude. It was partnership. It was love. But Natalie was a woman who believed independence was the highest form of maturity. She owned a sleek apartment with minimalist furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Every corner of her place screamed control, from the color-coded bookshelves to the spotless kitchen counters. To her, space wasn't just physical, it was emotional currency. Derek never questioned it. He loved her sharpness, her ambition, her ability to walk into a room and make it bend to her will. He figured his role was to soften her edges, to be her balance. But that night, as they sat across from each other at her polished glass dining table, with takeout containers sweating between them, Derek's entire understanding of love began to unravel. He had spent the past 4 hours helping her prepare for a major client presentation, tightening her slide transitions, running through her pitch, even cleaning out her laptop, so it wouldn't lag mid-meeting. He brought Thai food, her favorite, because he knew she'd skip dinner otherwise. He thought he was helping her win. But when he casually mentioned his buddy's wedding, her expression shifted. Her chopsticks froze midair. "Actually about that," she said softly, but her tone carried an edge. "You're not coming." Derek blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" She sighed. That deep practice sigh, that meant don't make this hard. "Derek, we need to talk." And then the words came, sharp, surgical. "You're always there, always texting, always offering to help. It's suffocating." He felt his chest tighten. "I thought I was being supportive." "You're being clingy," she said, her eyes flicking away. "It's pathetic, Derek. You don't have your own life. You just revolve around me." The silence that followed was heavy, almost physical. The smell of basil and chili oil filled the space, clashing with the sudden chill that fell between them. Derek stared at her, words caught somewhere between disbelief and heartbreak. Finally, he whispered, "I see." "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "I'm not breaking up with you. I just need space. Get some hobbies. Stop texting me all the time. Just breathe a little without me." He stood up quietly, leaving the food untouched on her counter. "Of course," he said, voice calm but trembling underneath. She rolled her eyes. "See, this is what I mean. You make everything so heavy." He didn't argue. He just walked out, down the cold hallway, through the soft hum of the building's elevator, and into the night air that smelled faintly of rain and exhaust. Under the streetlights, something inside him began to harden. If she wanted space, she'd have it, all of it. When Derek got home, he sat in the dark, staring at the silent phone in his hand. The same phone that had once been a lifeline between them now felt like a chain. Slowly, deliberately, he turned off read receipts, archived their chat, and set the phone face down. Not blocked. That would be dramatic. Just gone. In that moment. Derek didn't realize it yet. But silence, the thing Natalie had begged for, was about to become the loudest thing in her world. Friday morning arrived quiet and gray, the kind of overcast sky that felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. Derek woke to the soft hum of rain against his window. For the first time in a long while, his phone didn't chirp with a good morning text. It should have felt strange, but instead there was a rare stillness in his apartment, a peace he hadn't realized he'd been missing. When Natalie's message came later, "Thanks for understanding last night. Talk later," Derek read it once, then set his phone aside. No reply. Saturday morning, another text appeared. "Hello? You okay?" He stared at it for a long moment before locking the screen. The silence was a revenge. It was clarity. Every message she sent was proof of how little she understood what she'd asked for. She didn't want space. She wanted control of when and how it existed. By Sunday, her patience cracked. "Derek, I said I needed space, not complete radio silence. Can you be mature about this?" He almost laughed. Mature. The word hung in the air like irony. What Natalie couldn't know, was that Derek had spent the last month planning to propose. The ring was hidden in his closet, tucked behind a stack of woodworking books. He'd spoken to her father, who had patted his shoulder and said, "You're the best thing that's happened to her." He'd envisioned a life built on partnership, on shared dreams. Now that dream sat in a velvet box, mocking him. Monday morning, he drove to the jeweler, rain still falling in soft, rhythmic sheets. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. The clerk recognized him instantly. "Everything okay?" she asked gently. Derek smiled faintly. "Change of plans." She nodded, no questions asked, and processed return. The ring disappeared into back room, and with it, the last piece of a future that would never be. When he stepped back into the cool air, something shifted in him. The silence that had started as pain was becoming peace. He started living. The first thing he did was sign up for a woodworking class. Something he'd always wanted to try, but never had time for, because weekends were Natalie's time. The scent of sawdust, the rhythmic hum of sanders, the satisfying weight of smooth wood under his palms. It grounded him. He joined a local basketball league. His lungs burned, muscles ached, but every drop of sweat felt like release. He downloaded a Spanish learning app, challenging himself to memorize verbs and phrases between coffee breaks. "Estoy bien," he'd whisper with a smile. "I'm fine." And for the first time in years, he really was. By Tuesday, Natalie's tone had changed again. "Are you seriously giving me the silent treatment? This is childish, Derek." "Fine. Be that way." He remained silent, but silence wasn't absence. It was choice, and choices have consequences. One by one, Derek began pulling his threads out of her life, the invisible strings that held her world together. He canceled the grocery delivery subscription he'd set up under his card, removed her from the family Spotify plan, revoked access to the Netflix, Hulu, and HBO accounts she claimed were too annoying to set up herself. By Wednesday, the messages took a new tone. "Why can't I access Netflix?" "Derek, did you change the passwords?" "This is petty." He didn't reply. That night, Natalie's next text came in desperation. "My car is making that noise again." "Derek, it's getting worse. Can you at least tell me what you did last time?" He read it, then put his phone down. That evening, he went to a comedy show with his sister. The club was small, dimly lit, smelling of popcorn and beer. Laughter bounced off brick walls, mingling with the sound of clinking glasses. For the first time in a long while, Derek laughed, not politely, not halfway, but deeply. Across town, Natalie sat in her apartment, staring at a silent phone, wondering why the man she called pathetic was suddenly a ghost. She had wanted mystery. Now she had it. By the start of the second week, the silence had grown teeth. What began as mild annoyance in Natalie's messages was morphing into frustration, then panic. Her world, once smooth and predictable, was beginning to come apart at the seams. It started with the car. For months, Derek had been quietly managing every small issue, the squeaky brakes, the misfiring sensor, the strange grinding sound that came and went. He had a system, YouTube tutorials, cheap replacement parts, late-night trips to auto shops. Natalie never worried about it because Derek always said, "I've got it." Now, she didn't. When the noise returned, louder this time, she tried to ignore it, until the car refused to start one Thursday morning. The tow truck came with a $200 bill. The mechanic quoted her nearly $1,800 in repairs, and that was just for the obvious damage. By the end of the week, she'd paid over $4,000 for problems Derek had quietly prevented for years. But it wasn't just the car. Her laptop crashed. The same laptop Derek had once kept optimized, cleaned, and backed up on a subscription he paid for. Now, with her project deadline looming, she realized the subscription had expired. Everything, every file, every slide, every note, gone. Natalie sat at her desk, surrounded by glowing screens and whispering coworkers, staring blankly at the black monitor. Her chest tightened as panic clawed its way up her throat. She wanted to call Derek. Instinctively, she reached for her phone, then stopped. Her pride burned hotter than her desperation. She typed anyway. "Derek, please. I know you're seeing these. I need help with my computer." It crashed. A pause. No reply. "I'm sorry for what I said, okay? You're being emotionally abusive with this silent treatment. I'm going to call the police and report you missing if you don't respond." The message hung there, a digital scream into a void. Still nothing. Across the city, Derek sat in a quiet cafe, sketching plans for a new project, a small oak table for his woodworking class. The faint aroma of roasted beans filled the air, blending with the low murmur of conversation. His phone buzzed once, face down on the table. He didn't even look. His friend Chris glanced at the phone, then at him. "You're not going to check that?" Derek shook his head. "No need. If it's important, they'll call twice." Chris smirked. "You're finally learning boundaries." Boundaries. That word had once been foreign to Derek. Now it was freedom. But Natalie's world was shrinking. Her apartment building's maintenance man, Roberto, texted Derek later that week. "Hey man, everything okay? We haven't seen you in a while. Natalie said you were her emergency contact." Derek smiled faintly at the irony. He texted back politely. "All good. Not available anymore. Please contact Natalie directly for any issues." By then, her messages had gone from calm to chaotic. "Why aren't you answering?" "I miss you. Please, just tell me what I did wrong." "You win. I'm sorry." Each one more frantic than the last, each unanswered. When her presentation came, the one Derek had spent countless nights helping her perfect, she fumbled. Her voice trembled, her slides glitched, her confidence fractured under pressure. Her boss, once impressed by her poise, watched with furrowed brow. Afterward, in the privacy of a bathroom stall, Natalie pressed her palms against her temples and wept quietly. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the air thick with the scent of cheap soap and panic. For the first time, she understood what Derek had been. Not an accessory, not a crutch, but a foundation. She had built her independence on his reliability, mistaking his constancy for weakness. Now, with every unanswered message, every glitch, every silence, she was realizing just how much he'd held together. But Derek wasn't angry. He wasn't vindictive. He was just gone. And that absence, steady, unbroken, absolute, was becoming unbearable. The man she once called pathetic was now the ghost haunting her reality. By the third week, the silence wasn't just an absence. It was a mirror. Everywhere Natalie turned, she saw the shape of Derek's absence reflected back at her. In the empty passenger seat of her car, in the untouched takeout containers she didn't know how to reheat, in the flickering Wi-Fi router she didn't know how to reset. The silence was starting to echo. It started one Tuesday night. Rain battered the city again, painting silver streaks down the tall apartment windows. Derek had just finished sanding a smooth curve into a walnut tabletop when his phone buzzed. A string of missed calls, one after another. He didn't need to look. He already knew. At 11 p.m., the banging began. 3 loud, desperate knocks on his apartment door. "Derek, open up." Natalie's voice cracked through the wood. "I know you're in there." Derek's heart pounded. He took a slow breath, stepped closer, but didn't open. "Go home, Natalie," he said to the door, his voice calm but firm. "I didn't mean this," she pleaded. "I meant like less texting, not this. You're being cruel." "You called me clingy," he replied evenly. "You said my love was pathetic. I'm giving you space. That's what you asked for." "You're taking everything literally," she snapped. "You're acting psychotic." He sighed, the sound heavy with exhaustion rather than anger. "Please leave, or I'll call building security." For a long moment, all he heard was rain. Then came a loud kick, a hollow thud against the door, followed by her voice, raw with frustration. "You're a manipulative coward, Derek." He stood there in silence until the footsteps faded. The next morning, Derek got an email from HR. We received a concerning message regarding your mental health and behavior. It began, someone anonymous but obvious had claimed he was having a breakdown and could be a danger to himself. He met with HR calmly, bringing screenshots of her earlier messages, the ones where she called him pathetic and needy. The HR manager, a middle-aged woman with gentle eyes, read them quietly, then looked up. "She's harassing you," she said softly. "We'll document everything. You've done nothing wrong." That night, Derek walked home under streetlights shimmering in puddles. He should have felt angry, betrayed, but mostly he felt numb and sad. Sad that love had turned into this. Lies, manipulation, desperation. Across town, Natalie was spiraling. Her social media posts began to shift, cryptic quotes about toxic partners and emotional abandonment, long paragraphs about narcissistic silence. Friends flooded her comments with sympathy. "You deserve better, girl. Silence is abuse. He's gaslighting you." Derek read none of it. He was too busy sanding, shaping, building something tangible with his hands. Something real, but the silence continued to strip Natalie bare. Her laptop finally died completely. Black screen, no recovery. 3 weeks of follow-up work vanished. The automatic backup subscription Derek had once renewed every month had expired. Her panic spiraled into a full-blown breakdown at work. Shaking hands, tear-streaked face, muttering apologies to no one in particular. Her boss gently suggested she take some time off. That night, Natalie sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of a wall clock Derek had fixed months ago. For the first time, she realized how much of her life bore his fingerprints. The organized folders on her computer, the working light bulbs, the smooth-running car, the very stability she'd mistaken for suffocation. Now everything buzzed, cracked, or broke. And through it all, the silence stayed. When she reached out to mutual friends, Jessica, Monica, Heather, they took turns messaging Derek. Jessica wrote first. "She's really struggling. Can't you at least talk to her?" Derek replied once. "She asked for space. I'm respecting that." Monica tried next. "You're being cruel. You don't just vanish like that." He didn't reply. Heather, honest and weary, sent the last one. "Look, she messed up, but she's realizing it now. She literally can't function without you." Derek typed, paused, then deleted his response. Some lessons, he knew, couldn't be taught with words, only with silence. By the end of week 3, Natalie had lost her composure. Her late-night visits, her angry calls, her social media rants. Each one chipped away at the image she'd built. The composed, independent woman who didn't need anyone. She was unraveling. And in the quiet center of that storm, Derek remained still, not to punish, but to protect himself. He'd spent years being her anchor. Now, for the first time, he was learning how to stand without holding someone else up. It was late Sunday afternoon, the kind of quiet, golden day that made everything look softer, almost forgiving. The city had slowed. Leaves drifted across the sidewalks. Somewhere, a radio played an old love song that no one really listened to anymore. Derek was closing up his workshop when he heard footsteps. Slow, hesitant, the kind that didn't belong to a stranger. He didn't turn around. He didn't have to. "Hi," Natalie said. Her voice was small, a whisper wrapped in exhaustion. He set down the rag he'd been using, wiped his hands, and finally looked up. She stood in the doorway, her eyes red but calm, her posture less proud than before. She was holding a small paper bag, the kind that used to carry pastries or sandwiches from their old weekend cafe. "I brought coffee," she said quietly. "Your favorite. 2 sugars. He nodded but didn't move closer. "I know you probably don't want to see me," she continued, "but I needed to say this. In person." Derek leaned against the workbench, arms crossed, not defensively, just steady. "I'm listening." For a moment, she didn't speak. She just stared at the wooden table he'd been sanding earlier, smooth, simple, elegant, something built from patience. "I didn't realize," she finally said, her voice trembling, "how much of my world depended on you. You were everywhere, quietly fixing things I didn't even notice were broken." Derek said nothing. When you stopped replying, she went on, I thought you were trying to hurt me, but the silence wasn't cruel. It was empty. I filled it with noise because I didn't want to hear what it was telling me. What was it telling you? He asked softly. That I never really saw you, she whispered. Not the way I should have. The words hung between them, fragile, heavy, true. She reached into her bag and pulled out something small, a cracked phone charger. This stopped working yesterday, she said with a sad laugh. And for the first time, I didn't know what to do. You used to fix everything. Even me? He smiled faintly. You can't fix people, Natalie. You can only love them and hope they fix themselves. She swallowed hard. I don't know if I can. You can, he said gently. You just have to stop looking for control and start looking for peace. Natalie's eyes shimmered. Do you hate me? He shook his head. No, I don't hate you. I just can't go back. She nodded, tears spilling freely now. I know. For a moment, the silence returned, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was full of everything left unsaid, every memory that still lingered in the dust and light between them. I wanted to say sorry, she whispered, not because I expect forgiveness, just because I mean it. I know, he said quietly. And thank you. She smiled, a tired, broken smile, then stepped back toward the doorway. You always were the calm one, she said. I hope you find someone who sees that. And I hope you find someone who listens, he replied. She gave a small nod, turned, and walked away. He didn't follow. Outside, the evening sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the street. Natalie paused for just a moment, inhaling the scent of sawdust and rain, before disappearing around the corner. Inside, Derek stood alone in his workshop, surrounded by unfinished tables and the faint hum of the city. He picked up a block of wood and began carving again, slow, deliberate strokes, each one cleaner, surer, quieter than before. He wasn't fixing something broken this time. He was creating something new, and though the silence still lingered, it no longer felt empty. It felt peaceful, because sometimes love doesn't end in reunion. It ends in understanding, and that understanding is enough.